Happy Asian American and Pacific Islander Month. So in celebration of this month, I wanted to share a little bit about my experience transitioning and becoming vegan as a Filipina American woman. Um, and I know there's not a lot of us, um, but the numbers are growing, which is great. But I can totally relate. I come from a big ass Catholic Filipino family. Okay, my parents, each of my parents are one of 10 children. I have tons of cousins and like second cousins, and I'm literally the only vegan in my whole family. I have a cousin whose husband is vegetarian, and she's vegetarian until she goes home to her parents' house and she eats up all the Filipino food. And then I have a cousin who's pescatarian. But that's it. That's it. And a common thing that I hear from my relatives is I could never become vegan because I love our food so much, right? And a lot of our food is heavy with pork, chicken, beef, and then seafoods, right? There's fish and shrimp, fish sauce, shrimp paste, oyster sauce, like all kinds of animals are involved in our cooking. And I completely get it. In fact, that was me prior to 2015. I said, I was like, there's no way I could become vegan. I can't do it. In particular, like I like patis as a seasoning, right? Or fish sauce. Patis is what gives like some of my favorite dishes, like mungo beans and pinakbet. Like that patis is what makes it gives it the Filipino flair. And I've tried vegan versions of it, and it's like that's not the same. And I've tried vegan versions of like fish sauce, and they're just like it's getting better, but it's just not. It's not there. Okay. So I was just like, yeah, no, can't do it. Like I was cutting out a lot of animals, so I mean, even when I ate animals, I didn't eat a lot in general. And then like I just started cutting animals out one by one to the point where I really was only eating like chicken and salmon and tuna primarily, and then like maybe 1 to 3 times a month I would have a beef burger or some meatloaf. And then like pork I only had when I was eating like my mom's Filipino food, right, that she made. And again, she used, like pork is used more as a flavoring in dishes rather than being like the main thing. And even dishes like even curry was like too much for me. Like I didn't eat that much. I like the sauce and the green beans in it, but like that wasn't much. Dino goan is something I never ate as a meat eater because to me that was just like there was nothing appetizing about it even when I was a meat eater. And then like again, although like I really loved tocino and longanisa, like those were like for breakfast or brunch, like those were a couple of my other favorites, but I didn't eat them often. But when I was at a cousin's house or relative's house and they had it, like I was straight in there like with the garlic rice and then the egg, right, scrambled eggs, and like I was all over that. So but like I found ways actually to cook our foods in vegan ways that actually still had the taste, which I share often, like on my Instagram. I share what that secret ingredient is that you can use to simulate patis in Filipino dishes where it tastes like it has patis, but it really doesn't. You get that salty umami flavor in there, and it's awesome. So, so, but like when we get to like the things like pork or spam, I know like spam is like a big thing for Filipinos, and in Asia, like in Hawaii. I have cousins who live in Hawaii. Like musubi, spam musubi is like a top favorite thing. That's something I used to eat a lot of, as a snack thing. So like I get all of those things, and what's awesome though is that because of a lot of like product innovation with meats, with eggs, and alternatives, again, to get like the oyster sauce flavor, or to get like shrimp paste flavor. Like there's more companies and brands making versions of that, which is awesome. And so you really can get to the point where there's no fear of missing out. And one of the reasons that it took me a long time to go vegan was because I felt like if I was giving up patis, and I couldn't have that in some of my favorite Filipino dishes, a part of me felt like I was giving up my culture. Like there was a part of my culture I was cutting out by cutting out these foods. And that's something that I find that with other ethnicities, that with vegan, I should say specifically vegans of other ethnicities have a hard time of understanding that you know, the cultural identity that we have in our foods. And even for me, I was surprised how much of my cultural identity I actually tied to our foods. Like even for me, that was something that I learned in myself, and I didn't realize. And to be honest, it emotionally was hard for me to do that. Like I'm just gonna be straight up honest. Like I was like, it's already enough, because like in my family, I'm like the purple cow. Like I'm already different in so many ways, and now I'm gonna take it to the level of food, where now I have to, like, I go to family events, I can't just dive in and eat everything like everybody else eats. Like it's already isolating enough. Like, do I want to add on another layer? At least with food, we can all bond and share the same things. And I again, I knew of no other Filipino vegans. Like I knew one Filipino vegetarian, and then I knew a pescatarian. That was it. But no vegan. So then it was like, then I'd be alone. So that's like, that is too hard in itself. So, you know, so it took many years for me to make this process, this transition, mainly because of emotional and cultural issues. And, you know, but when I look back on when I finally made the switch in June of 2018 is when I finally like, okay, I'm doing it. It really has been the best decision I've ever made. Like I have no regrets. In fact, I'm now at the point where I don't even know how I ate meat in the first place. Like I don't even know, like it's not even in my consciousness anymore. So I don't have any missing out, because I don't even know how I ate fellow sentient beings in the first place. And now with the climate crisis and the environment, and seeing what factory farms, the impact of factory farms on the climate crisis and the environment, like, and then health issues around cholesterol, because high cholesterol is an issue in my family, and I even learned it myself. My body is naturally like has issues with high cholesterol. So me going on a completely plant-based diet like helped me in ways that I even wasn't aware of until I went vegan, and I went and got like my yearly physicals and stuff. So that was great to learn. But really the process for me, the major shift started in 2015 when I saw Cowspiracy, and I admit like that movie was a game changer for me. There was a lot in that movie I didn't believe, because I just thought this can't be true. It was mostly around how are the big environmental organizations not talking about the impact of factory farms on the climate crisis. So I went like many, I went on Google and started doing a lot of research, but also I wanted to learn actually more about the factory farm system itself. So it got me on this, I like deep dive into this rabbit hole of not only learning about the factory farms itself and the animals, but then like the feed they were eating, right? Which led me to more about big GMO, big pharma, big water. Then I got into the politics, right, of the influence that big meat and big ag had on politicians and on food policy. And then we got into the USDA and checkoff programs, which I'm like, what the heck are checkoff programs? And then you learn really how much influence our government and our tax dollars actually is is influencing our the drive for more Americans to eat more meat, dairy, and eggs. Most people don't know that the famous Milk Does a Body Good campaign was funded primarily by government, USDA checkoff program money, which was eye-opening to learn, right? And then I learned of this book, and forgive me, I can't remember the author's name offhand, but the book was called Meatonomics, and he actually did a video. There's a couple of videos on YouTube where he gets into talking about the economics and the checkoff programs and the USDA and all that. That's how I learned about the checkoff programs in watching Meatonomics, and that was hugely eye-opening too, and realizing how where my consumer and tax dollars were contributing to the factory farm system. So learning about all that just really was eye-opening. And so the shift in consciousness started happening in me. And then I made a deal with myself, like, okay, if I'm going to continue to eat beef, we'll just look at beef, I got to be able to look a cow in the eye and say, look, I need you to die so I can eat your flesh, so I can have a hamburger and meatloaf and steak, So I live in areas where we have hills, and the city has like a deal with some of the local ranchers, and so about 3 months out of the year, one of the ranchers brings like about 30 cows that roam our hills and act as like nature's lawnmower. So you can actually get pretty close up to the cows from the street, right? There's this area, there's a fence, wirewood fencing, and you can get close to them. And everyone leaves them alone, so it's really cool, right? Because we know that they're, these are gentle animals, and people are respectful of them. So one day, I was about like this close from a cow, and so I'm like, okay, I looked it in the eye, and I was like, all right, Miss or Mr. Cow, I need you to I need you to die. Could you die? What, is it all right if we and I just kept saying that. I could not say the words die or slaughter looking in the face of this cow. And so I walked away and was like, I can't do it. And then like a week later, I had another opportunity, and same thing. And this time I just saw the soul in the eyes of this cow, and it started to click in me, like, this is a sentient being. This is a gentle giant. This being has a soul. And who am I to be the judge of, like, its death? It just wants to live too, right? Like a dog or a cat, which we treat like family members. So why shouldn't cows have the same right to life as like dogs and cats, as a sentient being? And so I'm like, I can't do it. Okay, I'm like, if I can't do it, then, or I can't even, could I bring myself to kill this cow so I could eat it? Like, there's no way. Like, if I can't even say the words, I can't kill it. So that was like so that kind of pretty much ended me eating beef. And then with seafood, so I just, again, was eating like salmon and tuna, and again, pork on occasion. But now the shift started happening in me. And then after like learning more about the factory farm system, I in 2016, I decided to go plant-based. So I went plant-based, but I was still eating foods that had patis in it, and I was still using patis and honey. Like, the honey was another thing I couldn't let go. I had a hard time letting go of. And oyster sauce. Like, I loved oyster sauce. So it was really like the Asian sauces that I had not eliminated from my diet yet. So that was 2016. And then 2016, Cowspiracy, they had a conference in Berkeley. It was called CowCon 2016. And so I went to that, and it was incredible to listen to all these speakers. and be around all these vegan activists, and they were totally cool. Like, these were really just cool people. But I was at one point I was standing in line for another session, and in front of me was Renee King Sonnen, and she's, you know, the founder of Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. So I got talking to her, and, you know, I was telling her, like, well, I'm not vegan, but, you know, I went plant-based. I'm going plant-based, and, you know, but I don't know, occasionally, in fact, that, yeah, early in 2016, I think I was still eating the occasional burger, or beef burrito at Chipotle. So, and I, you know, I was conscious about, like, okay, if I'm going to eat beef, then it's going to be humanely slaughtered, humanely raised meat. And so I got a conversation with Renee, and she's like, oh, okay. So she asked me, like, what do you think humane slaughter is? Like, so I was going to explain to her what. I was like, well, it's the animals killed quickly, you know, without feeling pain. It didn't suffer, like, it had a quick death. And she goes, yeah, but what do you think that actually is entailed in that? What do they do to, you know, give it a quick death? And also, like, is it actually humane to kill another sentient being that doesn't want to die? Right? So she kind of planted this seed in me and really got me to question what it means, like, what does humane slaughter mean? And then I saw something else related, was like, if you're going to support local farmers, then you also need to support local slaughterhouses, which is another thing that people don't talk about, right? And that got me thinking about stuff too, like, oh, so I need to support the local slaughterhouses as well. And then I on YouTube, I saw this video of this doctor who wanted to witness what humane slaughter was, right? So she went to a local slaughterhouse. They allowed her to film, and she befriended this white cow, this female white cow, and she was with her in her last day, and last moments of her death, and she filmed it, this humane slaughter, and that absolutely did it for me. Like, I was like, okay, this whole concept of humane slaughter is just like, watching this was so painful for me. Like, I could physically feel pain in this, and then the look in the cow's face, because she had come to trust this woman, and she wasn't afraid in her last hours because that woman was there, and she felt comforted, and at the same time, I'm like, oh my God, this cow was totally betrayed. Like, she was not safe. And even this woman doctor, like, shared that, right, her trauma in witnessing this, because she could see that the cow felt safe with her, thinking that she was safe with this human, and, like, that really impacted me a lot. And I just was like, okay, another major shift happened, like, in me, and, like, I just can't eat, like, earth animals anymore. So that was done. I was done with the earth, you know, land animals, but I was still, the seafood was, and honey was still, like, other things. So fast forward, so I was just plant-based for 2 years. Fast forward to 2018. Again, the makers of Cowspiracy and What the Health had a Cowspiracy What the Health conference. It was a 2-day conference in San Francisco, and I went to that. And again, lots of really cool people there. And on day 2 of the conference, I decided, that's it, I'm vegan. So June 3rd, 2018, I went vegan, and I started my Instagram account, a vegan Filipino, and started posting, like, the vegan Filipino foods that I was making. And my intention was, again, to help educate, help inspire and motivate other Filipinos to become vegan, or to even just start eating more plant-based. And so since that time, I've what I've done is, like, even just by posting my food and getting my mom involved, I've inspired a lot of my cousins to just try vegan Filipino dishes, or to try the ingredients that I've been using. So it's slowly making a dent with them because they just see my food and they're like, oh my God, it looks so good. It looks pretty. It looks delicious. Like, I want to eat it. Like, one of popular, my popular dishes or things that I made actually was an ubi cinnamon twist cake that everybody went nuts. And then when my parents ate it, like, this cake lasted less than 48 hours because my parents loved this vegan ubi cinnamon twist cake so much, like they just kept eating it, and it brought me joy, and it was kind of awesome. And then my other cousins wanted, because I offered to make people, this cakes just so they could try it, and like a bunch of people were like, yes, make me cake, make me the ubi cake. so those are things that I've done that have helped, again, plant the seeds, help start to shift the consciousness. Because again, I'm one of these vegans that believe in giving people room and time to process and get the consciousness to shift, so that when they make the change to becoming vegan or plant-based, that change becomes permanent. And it's not like, we do it fast and then it's like, oh, we did it so fast that like I'm gonna go back to doing that. Like, I think when you do a longer process, it makes the change stick permanently, because there was no stress, there was no anxiety, it just happens. And then sometimes what happens is your body just decides, all right, I'm done. Because that happened to me with chicken. Actually, back in 2010, I saw Food Inc. And I don't know what it was about seeing what happened to the chickens in there. I mean, I 2 days later, my body was like, we're done eating chicken. We just don't want to eat it anymore. And I hadn't eaten chicken since 2010. It just done. Like, I had things with like chicken broth, but like actually eating chicken meat, like I was done in 2010, because my body just decided we were done. And that kind of happened in 2018 when I decided to go vegan. Like, my entire energy and consciousness was like, that's it. We're done with the animal products. We're vegan. I said, and it has not been a struggle. It has not been a fight. I have not regretted anything. I've not had any FOMO. None of that. It's just this is what's normal to me now. And like I said earlier, like I can't even fathom that I ate meat before. Like, it's hard to me that I even imagine eating meat. Like, I look at meat now and I am just like, I can't believe I used to eat that. And not like it's not like I'm in disgusted kind of way, because again, I also, I try to avoid like, getting into shame and guilt and any of that stuff, right? Like, at the time where I was, mentally, emotionally, consciously, that's where I was, and that's what served my body at the time. Now I've moved to like another evolution in my growth, and the expansion of my consciousness. And so I try to emphasize that with other people too, is that, when you're going through this process, also practice compassion with yourself. If we're practicing compassion with animals, I believe we should practice compassion overall. And that includes compassion with ourselves. And if it takes a couple years, it takes a couple years, but you get there and then it sticks. And then you go on to help inspire others. And that's really, the message that I like to carry on. And I find that I get more people to listen to me, because I'm more about connecting, and finding where we have common grounds and then going from there. And I focus primarily on the benefits and the joys and the successes that I've had going vegan and being vegan. And again, it's been life-changing in just the most positive, wonderful way. So I just want to encourage all of you, help inspire. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. you know, when we can go back out again, I will be cooking my foods and bringing them to the vegan potluck, right? The vegan Filipino foods, as soon as we can do that again. And anyway, that's my story. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave me comments or send me a message. I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, happy Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month from a vegan Filipina.